In the year 2483, Earth was no longer the home it once was. The skies were dull and grey, thick with dust from the mining towers that stretched into the atmosphere. The sun still rose, but it looked weaker, as if it too had given up. Once a proud world of innovation and freedom, Earth had become a shadow of itself, just another colony under the watchful eye of the Galactic Council. Every corner of Earth was monitored. High above, metal drones buzzed quietly through the sky, scanning everything below with glowing blue eyes. The streets were lined with sensors, and giant screens displayed daily orders from the Council in multiple alien dialects. Patrols of alien enforcers, tall armored beings from distant worlds, walked through cities with weapons drawn. Humans weren't citizens anymore. They were workers, ruled by distant masters who thought of them as emotional, unpredictable, and dangerous. Aria Voss tightened her grip on a rusted wrench as she crouched beside a damaged power core in Sector 9. Once she had been a decorated pilot in Earth's defense fleet. Now she repaired machines built by the same enemies who had defeated her people. Her jumpsuit was stained with oil and dust, and her once sharp eyes carried the weight of betrayal and defeat. But beneath the surface, Aria's spirit remained unbroken. Around her, the repair depot hummed with noise, grinding metal, static-filled voices over comms, and the sharp crack of welders. Other workers moved silently, afraid to speak, afraid to draw attention. Aria wiped sweat from her forehead and kept working. She knew the routine. Get in, get out, keep your head down. That's how you survived under the Council's rule. At break time, she sat in the corner of the depot beside a pile of broken drones. Her only friend, Kai Ren, slid beside her with a grin. He was younger, lean and full of nervous energy. "I got something weird today," he whispered, eyes flicking toward a passing enforcer. "Pulled it from a Council patrol drone, went down in Zone 3. No ID tag, no return beacon. Like it didn't want to be found." Aria glanced at him, her interest piqued. "And you brought it here?" Kai shrugged. "I gutted it first. Its memory core's fried, but there's data. Weird data. The kind that doesn't belong in a simple patrol unit." Aria didn't speak right away. She stared at the silent sky through a crack in the depot wall. For months, she'd been hearing whispers of sudden blackouts, of tremors deep underground, of people vanishing from energy sites. The Council called them accidents. People like Aria knew better, but knowing and proving were two different things. Later that night, back in her bunker, a small metal room beneath the city ruins, Aria examined the drone Kai had brought. The casing was scorched, but the data chip inside was intact. She connected it to a worn-out terminal she'd salvaged years ago. The screen flickered, lines of alien code spilling out. At first it was nonsense, then a pattern emerged. Core siphon. Phase 3 initiated. Energy extraction, 2.3% total planetary mass. Collapse timeline classified. Aria froze. Core siphon. It meant the Council wasn't just taking Earth's surface resources, they were digging deeper into the planet's core. That was suicide. Remove too much of the core, and Earth would become unstable. Oceans would shift, continents would crack, the planet would die from the inside out. She leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. The Council hadn't just taken Earth's freedom, they were now taking its life. The door buzzed. Kai. She let him in and showed him the data. He stared in disbelief. "They're going to hollow Earth out, and just leave us here." "Worse," Aria said. "They won't leave us anything, not even time." For a moment they sat in silence. Outside, the ever-present hum of drones continued. The Council had crossed a line. They weren't just rulers now, they were executioners. Aria stood slowly, her decision made. "I need to find someone," she said. "Someone who still believes Earth is worth saving." Kai blinked. "You mean, the Resistance?" She nodded. "If they're still out there, we don't have much time." She looked up at the cracked ceiling, as if she could see the stars beyond it. "They wanted silence," she muttered. "But they've earned our fury." Aria didn't sleep that night. She sat in front of the old terminal, watching the data lines scroll on a loop. The drone's logs were fragmented, but the pieces were enough to tell a clear story. The Galactic Council had begun a secret project to extract energy from Earth's core, a process called core siphoning. The energy they harvested wasn't for Earth. It was to power the outer systems of the Union, worlds far away that had nothing to do with humans. To the Council, Earth was just a battery. By morning, Arya had copied the files to a hidden drive and wiped the terminal clean. She knew if anyone else found out what she had, it wouldn't just be her life in danger. Kai was still asleep in the corner, curled up in a blanket near a pile of old flight helmets. She didn't wake him yet. Instead, she slipped outside and stepped into the lifeless morning. The streets were mostly empty. A heavy fog drifted between buildings, lit by the pale blue glow of surveillance drones floating overhead. In the distance, mining towers pumped steam into the sky. Arya walked quickly, head down, until she reached the edge of the sector. A checkpoint stood ahead. 3 alien enforcers guarding a narrow bridge that connected the worker zone to the inner city. She didn't try to cross. She wasn't ready for that. Instead, she walked the edge of the ruins, following old tunnels that ran beneath the ground, relics from a time before the Council. She passed cracked stone walls marked with graffiti, symbols of resistance long erased from the surface. An hour later, she reached a sealed gate deep underground. She stopped and knocked once, then twice, then once more, slower. A voice crackled from a hidden speaker. "No one comes here without a name." Arya stood straight. "Voss, Commander Arya Voss, Earth Defense Fleet retired." Silence, then a click, and the gate opened. Inside, dim lights flickered along a narrow hallway. Armed humans stood guard, eyes alert but wary. One of them, a tall woman with short black hair and a scar down her cheek, stepped forward. "Commander Voss, you're either very brave or very stupid to come here." "Maybe both," Arya said. "I need to talk to someone in charge." The woman studied her, then nodded. "Come with me." They led her into a large chamber filled with old screens, maps, and salvaged tech. It was clear this was a base, but barely holding together. Supplies were low. People looked tired, worn from hiding too long. Still, there was purpose in their eyes. A man approached from the far side of the room. He looked older, with silver streaks in his beard and sharp eyes. He wore a patch on his coat, the broken circle of Earth's lost fleet. "I'm Commander Rourke," he said, "leader of what's left of the resistance. Why are you here?" Arya handed him the drive. "Because the Council is killing Earth, and we don't have much time." Rourke plugged the drive into a projector. Data poured across the screen. Drone logs, maps of the core, energy extraction rates. A heavy silence fell across the room. "This isn't just mining," someone whispered. "This is extermination." Rourke rubbed his face. "We've suspected something like this. Blackouts, quakes. But this is proof." "What will you do?" Arya asked. He looked at her. "What do you want us to do?" "Expose them," she said simply. "Show the truth. Let the people see what's coming." Rourke nodded slowly. "We've tried. The Council shuts every channel, intercepts every message. But if we can reach a major broadcast tower, like the one on Mars Outpost Theta, we could beam this across every Union-linked world." "But that's a fortress," someone said. "Security drones, enforcers, no one gets in." Arya stepped forward. "I've broken into worse. I'll go. Just get me a team." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Rourke smiled. "You may have been gone, Commander, but your fire's still there. We'll help you." Later that night, Arya returned to her bunker. Kai was awake now, pacing nervously. "Where were you?" he asked. "I thought you got picked up." "I found the resistance," she said. "They're real, and they're ready." Kai blinked. "So what now?" "Now we show the galaxy what the Council is hiding. We make them listen." Kai nodded slowly. "Then I'm in. Whatever it takes." As they began packing supplies, the ground trembled beneath their feet, soft but unmistakable. Another quake. Arya looked at the ceiling, heart heavy. Time was running out. The Resistance base buzzed with quiet urgency. Since Arya's visit, Commander Rourke and his people had begun preparing for something they hadn't dared attempt in years, a direct strike against the Galactic Council's infrastructure. The mission was clear: infiltrate the Mars outpost Theta, hijack the main broadcast tower, and beam the core siphoning data across all Union channels. For Arya, it felt like stepping back into the war, but this time, the enemy wasn't across a battlefield. It was above her, watching every move from orbit and beyond. She stood in a low-lit hangar deep underground. Around her, technicians worked on an old stealth transport ship. It was outdated, patched together with scavenged parts, but it would have to do. The Council's scanners were sharp. Anything larger or newer would be flagged and destroyed before leaving the atmosphere. Kai leaned against a support beam, chewing on a piece of dried fruit and watching Arya with a worried expression. "You sure about this?" he asked. Arya didn't look up from the terminal she was checking. "We either do this, or we wait for the ground to crack beneath us." He nodded but didn't look convinced. "Mars Theta's not just a relay, it's a fortress. You'll have minutes inside, maybe less. We'll make them count." The team was small, just 5 people. Arya would lead. Kai was their tech specialist. Rourke had chosen 3 others from his best fighters. Lyra, a sharpshooter with a calm gaze. Bren, a demolition expert who barely spoke. And Thomas, a quiet pilot with steady hands and nerves of steel. Before departure, Rourke pulled Arya aside. "You sure you don't want more backup?" he asked. "Too many people and we'll be spotted," she said. "Small team, fast strike." He gave her a long look, then handed her a small metal disc. "If you're caught, this will fry your comms and erase your identity. The Council won't get anything from you. Let's hope it doesn't come to that." The ship launched just before dawn. The sky was still dark, and the drones had thinned out during the planetary rotation. Thomas guided them into orbit, using old codes and shadows between satellites to stay hidden. Inside the ship, tension ran deep. No one spoke much. The air was cold, filled with the soft hum of engines and the occasional beep from Kai's console. Arya sat in silence, reviewing the floor plans of the tower again and again, memorizing every corridor, every security node. Mars Outpost Theta loomed ahead, a tall spire of black steel planted into the red desert. Built by humans long ago, it had been seized and fortified by the Council after Earth's surrender. Now it relayed messages, controlled satellites, and monitored planetary traffic. It was also guarded by over 50 enforcers and hundreds of drones. They landed behind a ridge, where an old maintenance tunnel ran beneath the tower. Arya led the team through the narrow shaft, weapons ready, lights low. The tunnel smelled of rust and old air. Every step echoed like a warning. They emerged inside a storage wing, deep within the tower's lower levels. The plan was simple. Kai would tap into the central comms array and upload the drone data. The message would then beam out across the Council's secured network, spreading to every connected world before it could be stopped. But nothing ever went according to plan. As Kai worked at the console, Arya and Lyra stood guard near the entrance. The lights above flickered. In the distance, Arya heard the low whir of approaching drones. "Make it fast," she whispered. "I'm in," Kai said, fingers flying across the keys. "I'm breaking the encryption. Give me 30 seconds. The sound of boots echoed down the hall. Enforcers. Arya raised her weapon. Lyra did the same. Bren placed a small charge near the doorway, just in case. The seconds dragged. Sweat slid down Kai's temple as he worked. 10 seconds, he muttered. "Almost wait. They're jamming the relay. I'll have to reroute through a secondary uplink. We don't have time." Arya snapped. Kai looked up, panic in his eyes. "If I don't, the signal dies in transmission. No one will see it." Arya hesitated, then nodded. "Do it." The enforcers were close now. Shadows moved past the hall entrance. Then came the voice, deep electronic alien. "Unauthorized presence detected. Surrender immediately." Bren didn't wait. He hit the detonator. The charge exploded, collapsing the ceiling just enough to block the hallway. Dust filled the room. Alarms screamed to life. "I've got it," Kai shouted. "Uploading now." The screens flashed. The drone footage played. Images of energy drills piercing deep into the Earth, data logs showing the core's steady decline, and council memos describing Earth as a resource to be expended. Then came the voice of High Chancellor Drovek, cold and direct. Earth's collapse is an acceptable loss. Proceed with extraction. The file streamed across the Union network. Within seconds, it would reach Earth, the moons, the colonies, and every trade station linked to the Council's grid. Kai ripped the drive from the console. It's done. Then we move. Arya yelled. They sprinted back through the tunnel, but enforcers had already rerouted. Drones burst into the hallways, weapons ready. A firefight erupted. Lasers crackled, walls exploded, and smoke filled the air. Bren held the line while the others escaped, his last words lost in the blast that shook the floor beneath them. They reached the ship with seconds to spare. Thomas took off fast, burning through the thin Martian atmosphere and angling the ship toward deep space. Behind them the tower still stood, but its secrets had been spilled. Arya slumped into her seat, blood on her arm, dust in her hair. They'll know it was us, Kai said quietly. Let them, she replied. Now the galaxy knows what they've done. Outside the stars flickered silently. The Council's secret was out. Within hours of the transmission, the stolen data spread like fire across the Galactic Union. The message, footage, logs, and Chancellor Drovek's voice reached every screen, terminal, and news feed from Earth's outer settlements to the wealthiest cities of distant planets. There was no time for the Council to cover it up. The truth had already taken root. On Earth, people crowded around broken displays in dusty streets. They watched in silence as images showed drilling machines deep in the planet's core. They listened as Drovek coldly declared their home an acceptable loss. At first, there was shock. Then came the fury. In the worker sectors, protests erupted. People tore down the Council's banners. Drones were pelted with rocks and metal tools. A patrol ship was set on fire near the North District. For the first time in decades, humans stood up not in fear but in defiance. High above, aboard the Galactic Council's flagship orbiting Saturn's rings, Chancellor Drovek stood in a cold chamber surrounded by his advisors. They've exposed classified operations, one of the ministers said. Public trust is collapsing. Not just humans, another warned. Tensions are rising across other colony worlds. This could spread. Drovek remained calm. He turned toward the wide window, gazing out at the stars. His voice was measured. They dared to challenge order. Earth must be made an example. But Chancellor, begin martial law. Deploy enforcer fleets. Erase all resistance. He paused, then added, and find the one who led this strike. The female, Arya Voss. Alive or dead. Back on Earth, Arya watched the chaos unfold from a safe house in the hills near the old northern mountain range. The resistance had moved quickly after the mission, splitting into smaller units. Surveillance had increased tenfold. The Council had activated emergency lockdowns. Checkpoints now surrounded every city. Inside the hideout, dim lights flickered, and whispers filled the room. A young girl delivered news reports from a hacked receiver. Rebellion grows in outer colonies. Earth's citizens refuse to return to work. Council ships arriving in Earth's orbit. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. Arya sat at the edge of a metal crate, her arm wrapped in a makeshift bandage from the wound she'd taken during the escape. Beside her, Kai worked furiously on his datapad, bouncing signals to keep them off the Council's radar. They're hunting you now, he said quietly. Not just as a rebel, as a symbol. Arya nodded. Then we give them something to fear. Thomas, the pilot, paced the room, tense. Drovek is going to crush everything. He's sending fleets. We'll never outgun them, Lyra said. But maybe we don't have to. Arya looked at her. Go on. If we can reach the deep comms relay beneath the old orbital launch site, we can send one more message, direct, unfiltered. Let people see not just data, but us. Faces, voices. They've seen what Drovek's doing. Now they need to see who's fighting back. Kai hesitated. That's not just dangerous. That's suicide. Arya stood slowly. Maybe, but rebellion needs fire, and someone has to light the match. That night, they moved quietly through mountain tunnels, leading toward the relay bunker hidden beneath what was once a launch base for Earth's space program. Over the years, the Council had ignored it, thinking it obsolete, but the Resistance had restored parts of the system, piece by piece. The team reached the chamber, dark, cracked from years of neglect, but still functional. They hooked in their gear. Arya stepped before the camera. She spoke simply. "I am Arya Voss, former commander of Earth's defense fleet. You've seen what the Council is doing, not just to us, but to all of you. They call this peace. They call this order, but it's theft, it's control, it's death." She paused, her voice steady. "We didn't ask for war, but we won't wait for extinction. This is our world, our lives, and we will take them back." She ended the message, and Kai sent it to every rebel cell, every hacked channel, every quiet sympathizer who had waited too long to act. As the signal left the station, the skies above Earth shimmered. Council ships began entering the atmosphere, giant black silhouettes against the stars, moving slow but certain. The countdown had begun. Arya turned toward her team. "They're coming." Thomas checked his weapon. "So are we." The sky was no longer silent. Council warships filled the atmosphere like dark clouds, blocking sunlight and casting long shadows over the cities below. Their engines rumbled across the sky, and their message was clear: submission or destruction. Streets emptied. Resistance fighters braced for what felt like the end. But in every corner of Earth, something had already changed. People were no longer afraid. Arya Voss stood on a hill overlooking Sector 9. Smoke rose in the distance from Council patrols that had been ambushed. Civilians were helping Resistance fighters move supplies, pass messages, and hide wounded. The spirit of rebellion, once buried deep, now burned in plain sight. Inside the Resistance command tent, the mood was tense. Maps were scattered across the table. Red lights blinked on communication screens. Reports poured in from across Earth and even distant colonies. "They've landed in 5 major cities," Kai said, pointing to a satellite feed. "Full force, drones, enforcers, airships, but they're meeting resistance in all of them." Arya nodded. "They didn't expect unity. They thought we'd stay scattered. They're trying to shut down the communication relays we used." Lyra added. "If they cut us off, we'll lose coordination." Arya looked around the room. "Then we hit them before they do. Hard." The plan was desperate, but it was their only shot. Strike a Council command ship, one of the main warships parked over Earth's upper atmosphere. Destroy it, and the rest would scatter. Show the galaxy that even the Council could bleed. The Resistance had one weapon powerful enough, an old orbital missile left buried beneath a defunct launch base. It hadn't been fired in over 50 years, but the engineers, working day and night since the Council's arrival, had brought it back to life. "We only get one shot," Thomas said as they rode toward the base in an armored truck. "Miss or get jammed, and they'll track it back to us." "Then we don't miss," Arya replied. The launch base had long since fallen into ruin. Cracked pavement, rusted fuel tanks, and empty silos stretched out like bones in a graveyard. But deep underground the missile waited, tall, sleek, silent. The Resistance team moved quickly. Final checks, system overrides, targeting calibration. Locked onto the central command ship, Kai said. "It's cloaked, but we've got a fix on its gravity signature, firing in 5 minutes." As the countdown began, an unexpected signal came through, a direct transmission from the Council flagship. "Arya Voss," the voice said, cold and sharp. "This is High Chancellor Drovek. I offer you one last chance to surrender." Arya stepped toward the console. "Surrender, Earth, let you finish what you started." "You cannot win," Drovek said. "Your people will suffer more than you can imagine." "We already have," she said quietly. "Then you will watch them fall." The transmission ended. The screen went black. Kai looked up, ready to launch. Arya gave the order. "Do it." The silo rumbled. Dust shook from the ceiling. The missile rose on a pillar of fire, cutting through the atmosphere like a spear. As it broke the clouds, Enemy drones detected it, but too late. The Resistance's tech had masked its launch long enough. On board the flagship, alarms blared. Drovek turned sharply as a red icon blinked across the ship's holographic map. "Evasive action," he shouted. But the ship was too large, too slow. The missile struck with a silent flash. Fire and metal tore through the sky as the flagship broke apart, pieces falling in a burning rain across the upper orbit. A shockwave rolled through the sky. On Earth, people stopped and stared, wide-eyed as the impossible happened. A Council warship was gone. For a moment the world was still. Then came the roar from streets, from hideouts, from open windows and underground tunnels. People cheered. They cried. They grabbed each other, shouting one name, Arya Voss. But the battle wasn't over yet. Drovek had survived. His personal escape pod had ejected seconds before the blast. From a secondary command cruiser, now orbiting above, he stared down at Earth with fury burning in his eyes. He opened a direct transmission. Every screen on Earth lit up, showing his face. "You think this changes anything?" he growled. "You think you've won? I will bring the full weight of the Council upon you. Earth will be ashes." Back at the Resistance base, Arya stood before a broadcast camera once more. Dirt on her face, blood on her sleeve, but her eyes bright and unshaken. "You've already lost," she replied, "because we're not afraid of you anymore. And now neither is the galaxy." The screens went black again, but the message had been sent. The Council's grip was breaking, not just on Earth but across the stars. Arya turned to her team. "Get ready," she said. "The real fight is just beginning." Smoke still curled through the sky. The wreckage of the Council's flagship drifted above Earth like a dying star, its burning pieces scattering across the atmosphere. What remained of its fleet hovered in hesitation. Ships that had once inspired fear now floated without command, without purpose. Down below, Earth had changed. In the cities, people no longer ran from drones. They chased them off, fought back with stolen weapons, homemade shields, and pure determination. Council flags were ripped down. Surveillance towers were smashed. For the first time in decades, the people of Earth walked with their heads high. The Resistance had moved fast since the missile strike. Cells across the planet coordinated raids, seized supply convoys, and took control of communication hubs. Arya's broadcast had inspired more than courage. It had united scattered groups who had once believed they were alone. But it wasn't over yet. Inside a quiet bunker deep in the western mountain zone, Arya stood over a table, staring at a tactical map. Thomas and Kai sat nearby, exhausted but alert. Lyra leaned against the wall, her rifle across her back. Outside, the cold wind blew, carrying with it the distant sound of aircraft. "He's still out there," Thomas said. "Drovek, we can't stop now." "We won't," Arya replied. "But we have to be smart. The rest of the Council will come looking. And if we fall back into silence, they'll sweep in and erase everything we've done." She turned toward a screen where images flickered, uprisings not just on Earth, but across other Council colonies. On Titan, miners had taken control of their work zones. On Proxima Station, engineers were jamming Council signals. Even distant Arcanis IV, long thought loyal to the Council, was beginning to fracture. A galaxy was waking up. A soft alert sounded. A message came through, encrypted and marked urgent. Arya tapped the screen. A woman appeared, her skin pale blue, her eyes glowing gently with bioluminescence. She was Seren Valis, a former Council scientist and now leader of a rebel movement on a colony far from Earth. "We saw your broadcast," Seren said. "We believed we were alone, but not anymore. Then we stand together," Arya replied. "No more worlds lost, no more silence." The screen dimmed. Arya looked at her team. "We've sparked something, but it needs more than fire. It needs leadership, vision." Lyra stepped forward. "Are you ready for that?" Arya didn't answer right away. She thought of the people in the streets, the messages flooding in from across the stars, the resistance fighters who had died so others could stand free. She remembered the look in Chancellor Drovek's eyes when he realized Earth would not kneel. "I didn't start this to lead," she said. "I started it because they crossed a line, but now I'll finish it." Suddenly, Kai's console beeped. He checked it and frowned. "Message from Drovek, encrypted, just for you." Arya walked over and read the message. It was short. "You've won nothing. The Union will rebuild. You will not." She sighed, then looked at the stars through a narrow window in the bunker ceiling. "Maybe the Union will rebuild," she said softly, "but it won't be yours anymore." Later that day, Arya stood before a massive crowd in what had once been the Council's Earth Command Zone. The stage was made from scrap metal and wood. The speakers crackled, and the banners were hand-painted, but it was real. It was Earth's. She stepped forward. The crowd fell silent. "We were never weak," she began. "We were just told we were. We were never broken, only held down. They tried to silence us, to drain our planet, to erase our future, but we didn't let them." She paused, eyes sweeping over the crowd. "We fought back, and now we rise." Cheers erupted, flags waved, and above them all, the Council's mark was set on fire and burned to ash in the wind. That night the stars above Earth seemed brighter, not because the Council had left, but because something new had begun. People didn't speak of surrender anymore. They spoke of rebuilding, of reclaiming, of uniting. In a small room beneath the city ruins, Arya sat alone for a moment. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small worn badge, her old Earth defense insignia. She set it on the table, then reached for a blank piece of metal. She carved a new symbol, not for war, but for freedom. The resistance had won the first fight, but the future would be built by all.